Good morning, everyone. Happy to see you. Today we have Robert Brand with us. For decades, he's been a litigation consultant and also an author and a speaker. So he has years of experience in this topic we're going to cover today. So with that, I will let Robert take it. Or do you like to be called Bob?
Either one's fine. Either one's
Okay.
fine. That's
All
fine.
right.
Yeah, glad
Great.
to.
Take it away.
I'll say disclose everything. Thank
Yes.
you, everybody. No, I got to stretch this out. Anyway, glad to be here. And I had mentioned to Lindsay, I never go over time. Some speakers, they just keep going, and I just don't. My dad was in the Navy, and I learned how to keep time. I don't know, whatever. So, just a statistic before I introduce my sponsors. And by the way, I never charge a real estate firm for what I do. I have I do not sell anything whatsoever. And So I'm sponsored by service providers, but this is a big topic. It's the number one source of litigation against residential agents only here in California. No other state has the problems that we do with disclosure issues. I always like to sort of give a shout out. I don't know if everybody has seen Gov Hutchison, but he's with Carr, and I do some joint events with them. I'm really he's really the speaker. I'm there to I don't know move his car around the parking lot or something practically. But no, he's a great guy and he knows more about real estate than anybody I've ever met. So I have three sponsors, and they always like to give kind of a quick hello. And I'll start out with Michael. I saw him here. I can't see everybody here now, but Elite Group or Elite Inspections is the largest home inspection company literally in the entire world. They have, um, I think, like 90 some home inspectors, and there's no inspection company like that anywhere. So, Michael, if you can hear me, take over.
Okay, well, I think you did my job for me, Bob. Thank you, everybody. See you guys later.
Yeah, good.
No, I really appreciate that. Only take a second of your guys' time. I work for the Elite Group Property Inspections. We're in 5 Southern California counties, from Ventura to San Diego. We do have 85 guys doing at least 2 inspections a day. We kind of keep it at 2 inspections, guys, because it's really important for us to upload those reports by the end of the day. We kind of pride ourselves on getting that to you right away. So if your inspector's doing 2 inspections, he's able to provide that inspection report for you guys. Game changer for us is all 85 guys do carry a sewer line camera. So if you want to upgrade your inspection package, sewer line camera is only 275. And a lot of people are reluctant to order the sewer line camera just because of pricing or whatnot. We only charge 275, and we can upgrade that inspection package that the day of the inspection, just in case. In other words, if we see telltale signs of slow water flow or some plumbing issues, we might suggest doing the sewer line, and we don't break the bank with it. It's only 275, and San Diego has a lot of root intrusions. I'll tell you, LA County, Lake Forest, and Orange County. So I would suggest do the sewer line. It's cheap with us. You get the report the same day, and we're pretty much a one-stop shop, guys. We do mold, sewer line, termite, roof. We do just about everything. Soils testing, phase 1 and 2, drone inspections, air quality testing. We're basically a one-stop shop to eliminate all the phone calls that you guys have when doing an inspection. So you can go to eliteinspections.com to book inspections, or you can call me direct. Let me just give you my cell number. I have a lot of agents that like to just text me, get pricing and availability questions, and I offer that to you guys. My phone number, my cell number is 949-300-5932. Again, it's 949-300-5932. I could book your inspections right from my phone, and I can talk to your clients if you want me to, and we can operate through a text message instead of calling an 800 number. So that's my spiel, and I appreciate you guys, and good luck out there. And thank you, Bob. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Michael. On the screen, I've got the PowerPoint, which you may not be able to see. I have your cell number, so they've had opportunity to write it
Okay,
down and so
perfect.
forth. And thank you for the reminder. And
Thank you.
I can't see everybody. Julia, are you here?
I am. Hi, everyone.
Okay. Oh, hello there. Hi, Julie with Choice Home Warranty. Go right ahead.
Thanks for having me. I'm Julia with Choice Home Warranty. Oddly enough, we are a REMAX national marketing sponsor here at Choice. So I love being here to talk to everybody at the local level and support you guys in this presentation. But yeah, Choice Home Warranty, we are unique in our pricing structure. We have a $75 service call fee. We're also unique in our claims distribution. And then you can call me anytime. Your clients are also welcome to call me if they have any trouble. Sometimes it's easy for them to just get in touch with me. They can text, call, email. That's all my information on the screen. And if there's anything I can help you guys with, any questions about home warranty, I know they're not all created equal, but we're all somewhat similar. We do, I think, stand out amongst the rest. So if you have any questions, go ahead and reach out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
very much. Nice to see you. And then one more sponsor, and I'm assuming he's in. Virgil, are you here? And he may not be. He may come in later. I'll just do a brief thing. They're a great company. They're independent, not related to any other real estate firm, and they provide an incredible service for mediation and after close of escrow when there's a dispute, and they jump in with their people. They don't conflict with legal counsel of any company, and they do a great job in making it go away so that the lawsuit never happens, and he'll probably send some information to your office. Okay, let's sort of do rapid fire here. And I mentioned I never go over time, so at noon we'll stop. The AVID says visual inspection, and a question that may arise when you're doing your limited visual inspection is it really limited to only that? It may be something you could hear, smell, whatever. And the answer is it's not really limited to visual only. It really is interpreted as in court as any sensory perception, as you might guess, like a strange odor or something like that. So uneven floors would be another example. You're upstairs, two-story home, and the hallway, I don't mean it's dramatic, but it seems to be a little bit sloped or whatever. You don't really see it, but you would still disclose it. You've got to be careful how you word it. Some unevenness noted or something like that. So it's really a multi-sensory inspection, although it's very limited. It's nothing like a home inspection. It's a very limited standard there for us, fortunately. And the only two categories we cover are defects and red flags. I think everybody knows what they are, but just a quick definition, a defect is when something's basically broken, and a great example is a cracked window. And the disclosure here, let's say this was a kitchen window, and the wording I suggest is not divinely inspired, but it is based on 3 decades of talking about this. Just cracked window, not a big crack, not 4 cracks in the window, not bad, good, okay, doesn't, just cracked window, and that says everything you would really need to know. And then a red flag is something like this. Let's say I'm in the family room, I see a stain. Uh, these are usually called water stains. I look at a lot of AVIDs, and the agent will say there's a water stain. Well, I don't. It could be from a rodent problem. They could have stored white wine in the attic and a bottle broke. Don't know. Don't care in terms. Won't say I don't care at all, but I don't care in terms of the form. So just stain noted as ceiling. Not big, not small, because those are all interpretive. If there was a window right below it, you could say stain noted ceiling above window or something like that. But we want to keep our wording and our disclosures limited and not qualify something like, in this case, water stain, because it may not be. A lot of challenges out there. Just for time's sake, I'll mention a couple of them. Let's say I'm in the living room and I'm doing my AVID thing. I look around, take a minute or two or more. I can't, there's nothing to say. It's like it looks great. Well, I'm not there to compliment it. What a mistake that some agents make when they don't see anything to comment on. Oh, there's a fan there. So ceiling fan noted. But a ceiling fan is inventory. It's not a defect or red flag. So we're not really there with the AVID or the TDS to document inventory. So I'll give you a suggestion on what to say after. I think I have another example. And this is like you're in the master bedroom, let's say, and you look around and everything looks okay. You're trying to find something. You notice there's a spider web up in the corner. Uh, it I don't mean like a big nest of spiders, but just, small spider web. It really doesn't rise to the level of disclosure. It's just not like disclosure worthy. So in my 30 plus years of talking about this, the best expression I have seen statewide is just nothing noted. Not that there's nothing wrong in the room or nothing that can be improved, but in terms of what really needs to be disclosed at the level of the AVID or TDS, it doesn't really qualify for disclosure. So nothing noted seems to work the best. And by the way, Lindsay, I don't know if I mentioned, I'll send some notes on all this to your office. Okay, visual inspection. What do you do when the home's in pristine condition? Often a high-end home, but not necessarily. And you've really done a good job. It's not a home inspection, so you're not going for hours, but you've really looked around and there's nothing to say. Well, never be afraid to break a window. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. Here in California, and I cover the whole state, so I've got to modify this a bit, but well, Southern California, not so much Northern, but just about every home around here, even really high-end homes have like stucco siding. There's some wood siding here and there. That's probably the most popular. Brick, whether it's a chimney or just part of the exterior siding is common in some areas. And on the right, that's for like the driveway, the patio, concrete cement driveway or patio. It is really difficult to find a home where these surfaces have nothing to say about, no cracks at all. We can usually say, and this doesn't mean anything needs to be fixed, but just to kind of show we were there, some cracks, some is a great word, by the way, because you're not giving a specific number that could be challenged. Some cracks noted at driveway or patio or whatever, what I have here, exterior siding and backyard patio. It doesn't mean it needs to be repaired, fixed, modified. It just means that's just something you observed. Don't want to call them settling cracks. That's like a geological term where a soils engineer would have to be involved. And some is a good word, even if you're at the backyard patio and there are two like hairline cracks. Hairline is not a good word to use, but two hairline cracks. Some is good because if you happen to miss one or one of the cracks stops and it's a little bit more over here and it's really two cracks, it just makes it easier to interpret or to less chance of it being challenged when it's the word some. If you're wondering where to write it down, well, there's other places, but on the form. But if you haven't got to it yet, or you've had a lot to say, and or other observed or known conditions not specified above always works. Okay, stating the obvious. This is when, let's say you're, in my example here, you got the listing. No, let's say you're working with a buyer. That'd be better for this. Well, they're looking at this home on the right, um, and they end up doing the deal. Well, one of the mistakes that can be made is that it is so obvious. There's a school across the street. We don't have to mention it because it's like an insult to their intelligence. We still want to mention it. How we mention it, I will suggest in a moment. But a defense for buyers is that works in court is we were so overwhelmed by this property that it was our dream home. We kind of blocked out everything and didn't notice that there was a Walmart across the street or something. And that tends to work. So we want to make a disclosure. The issue we run into is what do you disclose? Like if there's a school there, there's going to be gridlock in the morning and afternoon, drop off and pick up during lunch or whatever, kids are probably going to be either sitting on that fence or they're going to be laying in the yard. And then there's weekend there's noise from the school, including weekends with like football practice or whatever's going on in the playground there. So we really can't make a list of everything that may bother somebody by living this close to the school because the list will never be long enough. So I'll give you a solution in a moment and a couple other pictures. This is where was I here? I go everywhere. Let's see, La Cienega and I-10. I don't know, somewhere up in LA, obviously. My favorite place to go. Anyway, not so much. Home, obviously, right next to the freeway. Some agents who are involved in, say, this property, they don't make any disclosure because they think it's like an insult to the client's intelligence. Like, well, of course there's one, it's right there. But a defense for a client is they're so mesmerized, so in love with the home, they blocked everything out and didn't realize till they moved in. It doesn't have to be this close either. It maybe not right on top of it, but they can kind of plead ignorance and it tends to work. Now, a mistake that we can make is just to isolate one thing, like there's heavy traffic during freeway noted, heavy traffic during rush hour or rush hours. Well, the buyers can say, no, it's noisy all the time. So you shouldn't have qualified it. And so we don't want to make too specific of a disclosure because if we get into specifics, we're always going to be leaving something out. So probably more like, and I may get to it later if I have time, just freeway adjacent to property. That means anything and everything, including people hanging out at the on-ramp, hitchhiking or whatever, is in that disclosure. If there's a freeway there and say it's near or close or adjacent to, in this case, um, don't get into like the noise may bother you during rush hour, but not so much other times because now we're qualifying things. And when you're this close to the freeway, you're going to be hearing it all the time. In the notes that I'll get to Lindsay, I'll have some examples of disclosures. Now, this is a shopping center. It's in is it Encinitas or Carlsbad? You may have seen it. There's a Target on the far left, and there's a sporting goods place, big one on the far right. I think there's 5 buildings. Well, there's nice homes up above there. There have been some complaints. There to the left of us is the Target, and they have deliveries 24 hours a day. Most of the other stores don't, but they do. And then that means the 18 wheelers and the forklifts and the guys yelling at each other, and some, keeping it kind of vague here to not betray anything. Some buyers have said, we knew that we could look down there, we can see there's a shopping center, but stores close at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, but not for us. On this end, on the left, there are deliveries, and the big trucks go back, beep, 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 and again the forklift and the guys yelling on. It never stops. I wish somebody would have told us that. Maybe not so much in the middle, but over there on the left and the right. So I'll get back to that in a second. But yes, no matter how obvious something is, we have to make a disclosure. A defense for buyers, especially under counsel of their attorney, is we fell in love with the house. We were so mesmerized by it. We blocked everything out and didn't see what we wish somebody had told us about. So we do have to make a disclosure. So back on this, disclosing something near the property, I would suggest that we disclose what is there, never a list of details of what may bother the buyers about what is there, because their attorney can just say, let's come up with something that's not on the list, and they'll be able to come up with that. So, for example, in our pictures we looked at, there is a freeway near the house, period. Everything that happens at a freeway is in that disclosure. If it's that close, it's near. We're not saying how many feet. We're not saying what time of day it might bother you. We don't know what their sleeping pattern is. A freeway is near the house, and not by default, but by implication, whatever will happen to you or whatever you'll experience living in this home by a freeway close by is going to be part of your life. A school is close to this property. We don't have to make a list of the morning and afternoon pickup, drop off, gridlock, sporting events on the weekend. We will, bells ringing for class. They still ring bells. I don't know what they do for class change now, but it's like we'll never complete the list. So just mentioning what is there covers whatever happens to you when you live close by to whatever is there, a store, a freeway, or whatever. Better not to make a list of specifics. And on something like this, maybe a shopping center is located behind this property. That means whatever you will experience by proximity, whether it's a little or a lot, depending on where they are. Also, I don't have my car keys here, but people locking their doors, and not as common as it used to be, but the horn honking or beeping, we hear that all day long. That's because, as we have here, there's a shopping center behind your property, and that's what happens when you live near a shopping center. Conveniences too, but that's one inconvenience. Okay, starting with the rough draft disclosure and turning it into a final disclosure. This is a technique. It doesn't cost anything. Don't have to download an app. It takes a half a minute usually or something. So let's say I'm in the kitchen and I see a couple of stains like this. Well, let's start out with a not so good disclosure, but since I look at a lot of AVIDs, it's not really that unusual. and I know you all realize this is wrong, 2 black mold stains noted. Well, I want to get rid of the 2 because see the upper left on the top. It's a little tiny one. Somebody could say that's a third spot. I don't want to get into an argument with them. There's no reason to give a number, so I'll just leave that off. I'll leave small off because they may disagree. Colors, probably want to leave those off. Maybe it's dark brown or something. I don't know. There's no way in the world I ever want to say or write down mold. That's a litigious subject, and I don't want to be involved in that. So I just get rid of words that don't really have to be there. What does need to be there is something similar to, or this exactly, either one. Stains noted at wall to left of refrigerator. So that's a good way to do the rough draft. Write it out maybe separately, unless it's something like broken window, and that's not going to change that. And then say, what can I take out of here? Especially if it's something like mold or suspected mold, because that can be we've all heard these nightmares where people move into a home, they smell like a mildew odor in the kitchen. They have it investigated like the first week they're in there, and they have to leave the house for like 6 months, go to a hotel because they got to redo the kitchen. And we want to make sure we have a disclosure that not only informs the client but also protects us as well. Okay, on the AVID, we have the term visual inspection, competent and diligent visual inspection. If this has to do with taking photos. Let me just back up. Notice it does say visual inspection. It doesn't say aided by photography or video. So since it says only visual, to comply with this, all we have to do is look around. When we start adding equipment like cameras, video equipment, there's all kinds of things like noise detection. There's all kinds of gadgets people can get. We're really putting ourselves in jeopardy because we're doing more than just a visual inspection. So we just want to walk around and in terms of taking photos, photos are not required for the TDS or the AVID. Advertising, of course, that's a whole nother topic, but taking a picture of like a cracked window and something else, but not taking pictures of other things that you're going to disclose can leave the impression that the places or the situations you took pictures of, you took a photograph of, are more important than the ones you didn't. So since photography is not required in the AVID, it's just better not to use it. So the only exception I can think of is something like this. And the scenario with this type of a garage, and my garage isn't like this, but please don't come over and look at it. Just take my word for it. But what often happens is the seller's moving out, and the garage does not look like this, but now they're down to a deadline and they don't know where to put all the stuff that they don't want that's in their house that they just haven't got to yet, and they put it in the garage. Well, we see something like this, we obviously have to exclude it from our limited visual inspection. And a great thing to write down is, let me see if I can get, well, let me go back here. I'll just talk my way through it. Is if and when this gets cleaned up, it's a company policy thing, but a lot of companies, a lot of agents say, this is usually on the buyer's side. It could be either, but buyer's side. If it's cleaned up prior to escrow, contact me. I will return at no cost and finish my visual inspection of the whole property by finishing up in the garage. And I would say 9 out of 10 times it never happens because the sellers just are not organized enough, or most of us aren't organized enough, and it still looks like this. And eventually they just say, let's just leave it and leave it for our buyers. And so anyway, I'll have some information on that in the notes. But it does say visual, so not a big fan of taking photographs. Advertising all day long, just not in disclosure. When we take a picture of something, our liability increases because we're now selecting what things we're looking at in the property that we think are worthy of photography, meaning the others we don't think are worthy of photography, and it may be one of the other disclosures that really causes a problem. So since it's visual, no need to take photos, in my opinion. Go with company policy. Um, this is an interesting thing here. Dennis might recognize it by living near this area. This is, or was until just for many, many years, I'm going to say 20 years, this was a hot air balloon airport, whatever. I think two or three balloons would take off from there. And quite some time ago, somebody moved in either in this house or one near it from out of state. Uh, just thought that, I guess, thought this was a vacant lot. Did not know about the hot air balloons. And I think depending on maybe when sundown is or whatever, about what 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there I think they do two or three balloons. Do I have a picture of them here? Let me see. Well, there's one. I think they do three balloons, and it's really noisy. And it didn't take very long, but it's just incredibly loud. The guys yelling back and forth and the motors to fill it up and all that. And I think, by the way, if you've ever seen this, it's in Encinitas. I usually don't say where they are, but across from the 7-Eleven. Um, it's all changed now. They're building something here. So this is a moot point now, but good example. The people that live, let's say, in that house right there, were not told about it because the people that sold it to their sellers were used to it, and it's just part of life. So the first day they were in, it's like, my gosh, what is that noise? And there was some, I would say, minor litigation settled out of court for a failure to let them know. So, there's two, and I think they do three balloons a day. Um, very expensive to do, by the way. My wife and I wanted to go up in one. It's like, oh, this is very expensive. But anyway, uh, the motto here is, or the lesson, buyers should never be surprised. Something's there that where they would normally say, "Oh, I didn't know that would be there." We want them to know about it. If they know about it in advance, there's not going to be any litigation if it's been written and it's been written properly. So when representing the seller, a good thing to ask is there anything about this property that the neighbors are going to tell the buyers? That's a good question. Now, something like the hot air balloon, if this is our farm area, we're really supposed to know about it because everybody there knows about the hot air balloons. So, but there's still maybe neighborhood things that since we don't live in that neighborhood, we may not know about, even though that's our major market. So it's a good question to ask, kind of a serious question in a quiet moment, when everybody's focusing. And an example of this is, you know, some, I cover the whole state, so I say, some communities, some cities have these neighborhoods where they go, I like to say overboard. I don't mean that as a criticism, but they really put a lot into the Christmas decorations. It attracts people to come and drive by and, very slowly, Christmas time and a bit after. And it's very important that if somebody's buying a home in one of these neighborhoods where this is expected on Christmas, during Christmas and also Halloween, um, they got to know about it because sometimes, depending on the community, even on the county, there's some different regulations around California. This is a very expensive thing to do. And buyers need to be, if they're in that path of traffic, they need to know that this is expected of them. They got to be on board for it, or it's nice if they are. They don't have to be. But who's going to pay for it and all that's got to be disclosed. Sometimes, well, it's all over the map, literally and figuratively. But if there's something like this, there's kind of a motto. Uh, Buyers should never be surprised by anything. If they're not surprised, they're not going to sue. Yeah. Anything, oh, we don't want them to say, they didn't tell me about this. They may object to it, but they say, oh yeah, they did, the agent did tell me about it. The home inspector too, maybe. Then they have no recourse, nor should they. A quick story here. This picture was taken before this home went on the market, but the neighbor to the right uh, knew that there was a leak in the garage, and they also knew that the neighbors here that maybe they didn't get along with too well were going to be putting their home on the market. So the folks living here put this tarp up, and then when they put their home on the market, they took the tarp down. but he still had a picture. So buyers move in, starts to rain, leak in the garage, and so the neighbor produces this picture. So something you have to be aware of is you never know. The neighbors can be ever so helpful in litigation, depending on which side you're on. But this picture closed the case because it was clear that the sellers knew about it and did not disclose it. Just a story there. So kind of wrap this part up. Buyers should never be surprised when representing the seller. Good to ask, is there anything, really seriously, anything about this property that the neighbors are going to tell your buyers about? Are they going to come over, get to know them? And by the way, I don't know if they told you this, and so forth. And it kind of in a private, quiet moment where they can really think about it, not so much on the go. Okay. Home inspectors in California. Do you know that 47 states license home inspectors? California is one of the three that does not. I thought when they first started licensing them that we would be like the first kid on the block, and nothing's happening on it at all now, and it's been quite some time. So the state of California does not license. It's an unregulated industry. So the first thing is, if you recommend a home inspection, which is a good idea, may I suggest you don't say it's best if you only use licensed home inspectors. There aren't any. They may be licensed contractors, but that's not a licensed home inspector. So just be aware, if you can keep this in your head, and it's not a major point, but there are no licensed home inspectors. So it's better to think of like professional home inspectors. Now there are different societies, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but organizations that have a lot of credibility. You have to take tests. They're not state tests, but you have to get certifications. These organizations test out their applicants. Probably the two toughest test giving organizations, far left, far right. CREA, or California Real Estate Association, and ASHI, or American Society of Home Inspectors. INTRNACHI, there's a couple of others. They're good to have. But if a home inspector has either the one on the left or the one on the right, and this will all be in the notes, they got to know what they're doing. Those are very difficult tests to pass, and they have to have experience and all that. So just a good thing. Only the client should choose a home inspector, by the way. You can give them a list. It's good to say that this list is not complete, and it's good to say that buyers on their own can seek out professional home inspectors on their own. Again, not a complete list. You're not picking it. So if they get a home inspector that doesn't do a good job, it's not because you chose that home inspector. It's better that they do. It decreases liability. Okay, another issue here, and I don't know if you have any questions, or you can maybe let me know now if that's the way it's going to be done, or another thing, you can always call me. I'll copy Lindsay in any correspondence. It's totally free service. If you want to take me to Starbucks, fine, but no, I'm kidding. I have never been to a Starbucks. I'm the only person living. I don't like coffee. Fortunately, I like soda pop. Anyway, avoid completing the AVID during the home inspection. And on the E&O insurance, very important to have. And the only thing I'll say about that without getting into the insurance policy is proof of E&O insurance should be immediately from a home inspection company, immediately available. They should all have it. It's easy to get. It's not expensive, and they will either have proof of it with them because they get asked about it, or somebody in the office can text over information or whatever they do. So it's a really good qualification for home inspectors. Not all have it, but it's not expensive and it's very easy to get, and it provides incredible protection for the prospective buyer if there's been a slip of professionalism or whatever. Let me just check, see if we have any questions here.
We do, Robert.
Yeah,
There's
go ahead.
one. Well, Neengreet was told in the past that she should use discoloration for any of those items she notices.
there's yellowing on something or whatever. Yeah. Discoloration is a great term. Yeah, there's other options, but discoloration is good. Yeah, that's a very good one.
And then
Um,
Dennis is wondering why you shouldn't do the AVID during the home inspection.
the main reason is because you want to do the AVID within the scope of care of a real estate licensee, not, and I'm going to expand on this, maybe not something Dennis or others are doing. You don't want to be in a position where you're in the presence of the home inspector who has a totally different standard of care that's going to be noticing things that we don't need to notice. It's their standard, not ours. And they're going to be making comments about they should have done this, should have done that. And we kind of feel like we've got to add it into. It's better to stay within our standard of care, which is much more limited than that of a home inspector. It's good to do it by ourselves. So we're not getting any outside commentary. That's a good question. It's a very important thing, I think, to be aware of. And so now during the home inspection, if they're in another part of the house or something, that's different. But even then, they may call you over, hey, come and look at this, and it can kind of foul up your mind on as to what to write down. So it's a real liability limiter to do it by yourself when the home inspector's not around and prior to looking at a home inspection report. That's a really good question. Okay. Well, this is kind of similar to the question I just asked. Here it is. um, Avoid or just don't complete the AVID during the home inspection. I didn't know this was coming up so quick. So let's say I can get into the property before the home inspector's there. And let's say this is a master bedroom. And just from this one view you have here, I don't see anything to disclose. Looks okay. I'm not going to say it's okay. That's a compliment. That's advertising. It's not disclosure. And there's a flower painting there, and that's all I know. I don't look behind paintings. I don't move things out of the way. It's outside of my standard of care. It's not outside of the standard of care of a home inspector. It is outside of I don't move anything off the walls. I don't move furniture. I don't move the bed out of the way to look at the floor. It's just what I see there. So if I'm following the home inspector around, and he moves that painting out of the way, and it looks like that, I have to disclose it now. Now, if I'm there by myself, it still is going to come out from a home inspection, but in terms of my standard of care, my liability to my company, this is all I see, and this is all I have to mention, which would probably be nothing because there's nothing to say about it. Home inspector looks behind the painting, sees the water damage or crack and all that sort of thing, has an obligation to disclose it. Now, it may come up obviously as an issue in the transaction. When it comes to the AVID, I did my job when I was there by myself, and my disclosure is correct, which is no disclosure about this because it was hidden by a painting or photograph. So I really have, and it really works. There's just no liability with it because you don't move things out of the way. So to kind of summarize this, when possible, always complete the AVID prior to the home inspection if you can get in there and do that. Never delay your visual inspection. The sellers, or whoever tells you, don't do your agent's visual inspection. They're just about to fix something in the rush of the impending close of escrow. Things like this often never get done. A little project, just do it at your soonest opportunity. If there is a major change because the sellers made a big repair or had somebody do it, you can go back and write a note on it or a commentary or a new disclosure. But it's better to get out there as soon as you can, and don't do it when you can, as soon as they'll let you in, because if they schedule it during pending repairs, you don't want to be there while the repair guy's there, and you want to see it the way it is right now. You can always modify it later if something's been done. And then in terms of attending the home inspection, great idea. Some buyers really get into it. Even if they're from out of town, they want to be there for the home inspector, and the parents and the kids follow the home inspector around. That's a whole nother story. But you want to be there at the home inspection, but you've already done, ideally, you've already done the AVID. You stayed within your standard of care. What the home inspector finds that you didn't find, maybe things that you have no business finding, or it's not part of your visual inspection. They still may become part of negotiations, but if there's something in the attic, the home inspector noticed that may be problematic, you have no disclosure on it because you don't go in the attic. You have no liability. It still may be attended to and negotiated, but it puts you in a much better position and an honest position. So avoid at all cost completing the AVID at the same time the home inspector is there. Like in this picture, you're not going to do with this. You're not going under the sinks and checking things and checking outlets for polarity and grounding and all that. The home inspector is, and if you're there watching them and, oh, this is not a grounded outlet or something, well, you've got to write it down and that's good in a way that they're going to get it, but they hired the home inspector for that. That's not something that we're supposed to do, in my opinion. Qualified disclosures. Well, now I'm not sure. Rancho Bernardo, I'm not sure where this is, but anyway, nice golf course there. And well, just a second. Let's say you have the listing and your seller, you got this, maybe the house in the middle there. Hey, you got a great property here. I'm delighted to list it for you. You couldn't get any closer to the golf course, but being that close to a golf course, maybe there's something to disclose. And the sellers say, well, uh, in about the span of a week, usually one or two golf balls hit our house. Okay, so that's what they say. So let's look at this. And it's too specific. One or two, you don't want there to be three or four or have the buyers experience that because that's not what they were told. So we have this one or two golf balls to make it better for us in our own disclosure. Golf balls occasionally hit the house. That's better, but we can still improve it. Maybe they're not just hitting the house, they're hitting the car in the driveway or something. I don't know. Golf balls occasionally hit this property. I'm not going as far as saying maybe there's golf balls, that's too far. But you don't want to get too specific. They break windows. Well, maybe they do something else or they mess up the roof tiles. Just golf balls hit the property occasionally. Occasionally is a good word. Anybody who's buying a home there in a setting like this knows that there are going to be golf balls. We just have to mention it, but we don't want to get too specific. This is an interesting situation. Home on a cul-de-sac. The buyer specifically stated they wanted the end of a not just a cul-de-sac, but the end of it. They wanted a quiet environment for their home in their lifestyle, and they ended up buying this home. We see the hedge on the left. That's the first of two hedges. There's one that's just kind of part of the neighborhood, and then better view of it there. And then behind that, another hedge right next to Interstate 5. And it's just right there from very close to the house. Well, but they were just in the cul-de-sac. They're from out of state. They didn't know. They didn't, search the place. So I've got to be careful when we use terms like quiet neighborhood. That's the biggest one that gets us in trouble because maybe it doesn't define the word quiet in the way that the buyers may experience, maybe for us. So we start out with a rough draft because we want to make a disclosure. Traffic noise noted from adjacent freeway during morning and afternoon rush hour periods. It's too specific, too arguable. We want to write a disclosure that ideally cannot reasonably be argued with or contradicted. So during morning and rush hour periods, let's just leave that out. Traffic noise noted from adjacent freeway is better rather than during morning, during afternoon. Maybe they just move in and say, we can hear it all the time. Well, that's a better disclosure for us and for them when we do not, specify the times of day. So that's something about qualified disclosures. What about wear and tear items? Should we disclose things that just fall into that category? And that would be like peeling paint, wallpaper, scuff marks, like the carpet's dirty or whatever, tracking through the house or something. The answer is usually not, because that's just wear and tear on a home. they're not really material issues. If it was a brand new home and the carpet looked really ratty, that might be different. But home is several years old. That's just the condition of a home that's been lived in. So usually those kinds of conditions do not rise to the level of disclosure. They're just expected in a property that has been lived in for 8 years or whatever. If you start disclosing the wear and tear issues, the minor stuff that don't really affect value or desirability, you got to disclose all of them, and that becomes just like overwhelming. And there's way, way, way too much in the Avid. It's kind of like this. The big disclosure. I've never played Where's Waldo, but I guess this is the game. There's Waldo. Anyway, I guess I don't know anything about the game. I think you try to find this guy. I think he's kind of hard to miss. So he's the significant disclosure that we want somebody to read, but there's so many other disclosures around him, people around him. The buyers who really need to know so they don't come after us later, they just get lost in it. So we got to be careful about over disclosing, having too much in the Avid. Let me look down here. See, okay, and looking at the time, about 10 minutes. Here's a good reminder. And with the question, should you take photos during a visual inspection? We know for advertising, that's kind of unlimited photography, and that's for the purpose of selling the home, advertising it, but not recommended for our AVID inspection. It's a visual inspection. One of the problems is that we looking at the crack you see on the bottom, most of us would probably, if we had to take pictures as part of the AVID, would probably take a photo of that because that doesn't look too good. But there's a gray area where some agents wouldn't mind what they see and they don't take a photo, or it's in their house and they don't mind. Others are more like alarmist, and I don't mean that in a bad way. They take a picture of everything, so we're making a judgment call. So taking photos during a visual inspection, your visual inspection, I don't personally think is a good idea. It's a visual inspection only. And if we're taking photos, we're making a choice as to what rises to a level of importance enough to have it documented, and that's not part of our job. Something that has become an issue, I would say in the last, well, you say 5 years, maybe 10 years, is when showing a property, it's a good idea to caution your buyers before entering the property to not say anything at all with gestures or the spoken word that's critical about the home, because a lot of homes have these things all over the place. And a lot of sellers, when they come home from work and their home has been shown, they sit down to watch what everybody had to say. And if prospective buyers are saying, I have never seen such an unkempt house or something that bothers them, they don't want to deal with that buyer, and it's just information that they don't need to know. So a good bit of advice when you have the buyers is to say at the curb before we get out of the car, no matter what you see in the property, if you want to discuss it, we can discuss it all you want, but let's discuss it after we leave. I don't mean on the front lawn, but we're in my car and we're driving away, and you can say anything you want, take notes. Please don't say anything critical about the home. There's a pretty good chance it's being video and audio recorded, and the sellers are going to listen to it. And we don't want them to have their feelings hurt, heaven forbid. So a good point there, a good thing to keep in mind. A little bit about investor clients, and I won't be too lengthy on this, so we don't have much time here. Oh, by the way, Lindsay, I can wrap it up in a couple of minutes. Do you want me to do some questions, or do you want me to just go to
Um,
the limit and then stop? What's your preference?
we could do a couple minutes for questions, but
Okay.
no, there's one question in the chat, but I don't know if anyone has
Oh, let me
questions.
just look at it real quick.
Yeah, well, Emily Zach wanted to confirm in the SBSA, there's a golf course warning. Is that correct? Are you
Yeah,
aware?
yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. It's still a good idea to make our own disclosure, but it's more of a blanket. Even just like, please note that this property is adjacent to a golf course. It is really sufficient rather than it's by a golf course, but no golf balls have ever hit the house or something like that. That's a good question. Okay, investor clients. It's good to keep in mind that if you're representing investors, and that changes with market conditions and all that, but they're purchasing a home like you see here on the left, and they fixing it up like on the right, and they may live in it or maybe a night or two be in it, but usually they don't reside in it. But they're the owner, they're the seller, and as an investor or not, they have the same disclosure responsibilities as sellers who had been living in the home for 10 years. It's their property. They have an obligation to disclose, and it does not work in court. And I've been in court, never been sued, but I've helped out in court a lot. If somebody says to a judge, like a real estate agent, well, um, we flipped the house. We never lived in it or didn't have anybody we knew know live in it, so we didn't know what was going on in there. It just doesn't work. They say you own the property. I don't care if you lived there or owned it for a month or if you lived there for 20 years. It's your house. You have to let the buyers know what's going on with it, good and bad. So there's really like no defense. So there's flooring problems, there's roof issues, there's evidence of mold. If that's in the house, even if we've owned it for 2 weeks while it was painted or something, we put on the market, we're really treated, or that kind of individual is treated in court like as if they off with most judges as if they lived there for 25 years. It's their home. They have a responsibility. The owner of this home that's being remodeled, the new owner that's remodeling it, has the same disclosure responsibilities as somebody that's lived in the home for 10 or 20 years. They're selling a property. There's no change in obligation to disclose based on how many years and months somebody lived there. If it's their house, they got to tell her, and if they don't know, there's a couple of things they go into court and say, well, I didn't mention it, Your Honor. I think I took a nap in there once, but I've never lived in the home. I can guarantee the judge will say, I don't care if you lived in it. You owned it. You have an obligation to the people that just shelled out 600 grand or whatever for it, and you didn't tell them anything. And you could have. How could I have? Well, all a seller has to do that's never lived in the home for more than a day is have a professional home inspection done, and just like a buyer would, but they do it, they select somebody or they have their agent select somebody, and they provide that as an additional disclosure to the buyer. And I like this wording here. It doesn't have to be exactly this way. Agents strongly suggest the sellers obtain a professional home inspection report as an additional disclosure to the buyers, so that the seller, who by his or her own admission never resided into a home, and that makes no difference to the judge. They're the owner of the house. They got an obligation, but they haven't lived there. So they spend, let's say $500 or whatever on a home inspection, and they use that as a substituted or additional disclosure. And that works really, really well. And then you could see what the arrow there, additional inspection reports or disclosures. See our sponsor, see Elite Home Inspection Number or whatever for additional disclosure information. Well, I got it right there. Yeah. All right. And that works really well. Okay.
We have a couple other questions.
Okay. Yes.
So when we have a listing where the seller has done a lot of work and we have seen the property prior to the work or have knowledge of the repairs, should we address that on the AVID?
Usually not, because if we never know if something's been fully repaired. If something, the roof was kind of messed up, but now it looks fine. And we usually go with how it looks when we're looking at it, so to speak, or when we're taking the listing, even if we know work was done. If a roof that was just repaired wasn't repaired very well, it's just outside of our standard of care to be able to notice it looks like a new roof. But so generally no to that question.
And then Dennis says, I think he wants you to comment about the agent following the inspector around and mentioning to the inspector about a problem.
Right. It's better from a liability standpoint to not follow the home inspector around, to have as little dialogue as possible, because it's a fairly routine point in litigation where the inspector says, well, that agent who didn't hire me and has nothing to do with me because the buyer hired me and I have an obligation to the buyer, kept talking to me, and they'll exaggerate about this and that, and it influenced my opinion, influenced what I wrote. So better not to have any other than, hi, nice to meet you, and I'll be out in my car or something like that, in terms of just not in normal life, just in terms of just avoiding litigation. Yeah.
And
I heard another variation of that,
Hmm.
and that is an agent ended up in court because she mentioned something to the inspector. Did you see that stain over such and such a place?
Yeah.
And so basically, she was busted for supervising the inspector.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good point. Good example. Yeah, that's why another reason why we don't want to do it.
and then Dennis also said, should you not open a sink cabinet to look underneath?
It's really a real estate firm guideline and it's a little bit depending on what part of California. There's no law about it. Most real estate companies, since I cover the whole state, do not want their agents opening up drawers and cupboards. That's just a policy, and I have never seen that be a problem where there's something that the agent could have seen or could have noticed by opening the cabinet. It just outside of what we do. So not I've never seen it as a problem if we don't open cupboards and cabinets.
Does that include closets?
Yeah, closets a little bit different, like especially if they got a door on them or whatever. It's good to, yeah, open it up and look at it. Yeah, that's a good point because it's treated a little bit different than or a lot different than drawers and that sort of thing. Or if there's a bedroom that's locked or whatever, um, we just noticed bedroom door locked, and a lot of agents say, or like with the crowded, dirty, messed up garage, depending on if the agent wants to, there's a no cost all return when the door's unlocked, whenever, whatever, and I will complete my visual inspection. And the vast majority of times we're never called back. Yeah, so you can see I have a lot more stuff here to go. This is a good picture. Just if you see this, just leave. There's a story behind this, but maybe next time. Um, and let's see. I'm going to. Hey, by the way, Dennis, I don't know if you've ever seen this. This is kind of. I think it's in Encinitas. This is near a traffic signal, and about 3 times a year, cars crash into this fence. I don't mean to laugh. Nobody's ever been hurt. There's a signal that's up to our right here, and people take a turn, and it's just something about the intersection. They overshoot it, and they don't hit the house. They just hit the fence. One week, 2 cars independent hit it, and that'd be a disclosure thing because it's happening. It's happening, all the time. But anyways, you have a lot of other stuff. But let me just thank. First of all, Lindsay, thank you very much for the invite. Thanks
Thank
to
you.
Elite, Choice Home Warranty. And then I'll give you some information about our other sponsor, and I'll get some seminar notes off to you, Lindsay, and
Sure.
invite me back anytime you like.
Yes, and actually we have a couple questions if you want to
Okay.
stick around just for a
Yeah.
second.
Yes.
Drew Reynolds asks, what about odors? What if we don't see something, but smell something?
Yeah. Just the word odor, if it's something that's like somewhat heavy, you don't want to say it's a mold odor because that's outside of our standard of care, or there's other things that we could say, like related to food or whatever. Just say odor noted in room, just that, and that's all. That works very well. And you're not even saying get rid of it, just you noticed it, and that's about all we can do.
And what about listening to the physical inspector's summary? One of our agents does that to help if we need to write that up in a request for repairs?
I think listening to it is okay. What really works the best is if we have, because we maybe have more access to the property depending on different factors, to do our agent's visual inspection. We're completely done with that, and we're not going to change anything. And the home inspector comes, gives a summary. Most of the things that the home inspector catches that we didn't are outside of our standard of care because it's something in the attic or whatever. So I'm not sure if I'm answering, but usually if they have more information than we do, unless we just flat out miss something, we don't really have any commentary on it.
Great.
Yeah.
Those are all the
Okay.
questions. We definitely love to have you back because I
Okay.
noticed you have a lot more slides we could go over.
I do. And this is
Great.
just one of several seminars, and I can also do it in person. What part of San Diego are you in?
So we have Scripps Ranch, Rancho Bernardo, Fallbrook, Carlsbad, and we have a new office now in Irvine.
Oh, you do? All right.
Yes.
I was the first graduating class of UC Irvine.
Wow.
I have not been back there since then, and that was 50 or 80 years ago. But anyway,
Oh.
great school. But yeah, I can do it in person, even in Irvine. And
Okay.
so
Sounds
thank you,
good.
everybody.
Thank
And
you.
I'll get the notes off to you in a minute, Lindsay.
Awesome.
Okay?
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you. All
All
right.
right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.